Welcome to A Moment of Zen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Zen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, cannabis, and entertainment from the millennial mom's perspective. Here's your host, Zen Sams.
Hello, my beautiful friends and loyal listeners. It's always a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you so much for listening and interacting with me on social media. That truly does make it all worthwhile. Please make sure to follow me at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X, not a Z. And remember that we're now on TV. Tune in at watch.kpmedia.tv and catch a moment of Zen on the Impact Live channel Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern. All episodes are now available on demand. We have such a great show lined up for you today in our influencer segment brought to us by CCP Digital. We are featuring Angela Gargano, a fitness coach, four-time ninja warrior, a cover girl, and CEO of pulluprevolution.com. And today we're chatting about why women tend to struggle with pull-ups and how 42% of Americans feel pressured to have a beach body ready for summer. In our digital world segment brought to you by Tempus Network, welcoming back to the segment is our regular contributor, CEO of Tempus Network, Shahal Khan. And today he's joined by Shawn Sharma. Shawn is a serial entrepreneur, a Cornell graduate with over 5 million followers. He's very active on Instagram. He has gone from living in a trailer park off of $600 a month with 2 disabled parents to becoming a multi-millionaire. Today, we're chatting about how you make money in the metaverse utilizing Web 3.0. In our innovation and tech segment brought to us by Caldwell Soames, we are featuring Paul Caldwell, Chairman and CEO of Caldwell Soames. And today we're chatting with Robby Yung, CEO of North American Operations at Animoca Brands, a global leader in blockchain games. And today we're chatting about reshaping gaming experiences, the monetization process in Web 3.0, and how blockchain games are still the strongest category amid crypto market downturn, with activity still being up 197% year after year. And in our My Healthy Minutes segment by Revere Securities, we're featuring returning guest, Dr. David Rankin. This is one of my favorite interviews, founder of Aquaplastic Surgery in Jupiter and Miami, Florida. And he's the chief of plastic surgery at St. Mary's Medical Center in West Palm Beach. Now, Dr. Rankin has been in practice for 19 years, and he's become well known for breast implant illness. Today, we are chatting about breast implants, why so many women are choosing to explant, and what this mysterious illness, otherwise known as BII, really is all about that's affecting hundreds of thousands of women. He's the #1 explantologist in the US. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with 4-time ninja warrior and fitness coach, Angela Gargano. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CCP Digital, bringing you a view from inside blockchain, cryptocurrency, and NFTs. Introducing the latest Blockchain Heroes series, Retro Rebellion NFT collectible card packs from the Nifty Company. Available January 2022. Find out more online at ccpdigital.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Coming on in just a few, we have our influencer segment brought to you by CCP Digital. And today we are featuring Angela Gargano. She's a fitness coach, a 4-time ninja warrior, a cover girl, and she's also the CEO of pulluprevolution.com. Today, we're chatting about why women tend to struggle with pull-ups and how 42% of Americans feel pressured to have a beach body ready for summer. Now, if you're a woman who regularly works out, there may still be one exercise that remains elusive, the pull-up. And in 2012, the New York Times reported that researchers who documented women on their fitness journeys found that only a small percentage of them were able to actually perform the exercise, even though that group had increased their upper body strength by 36% and lowered their body fat by 2%. They still couldn't do the pull-up. So why do many women struggle with this exercise, even if they're exceptionally fit and capable of other challenging routines? Well, biological sex is definitely a massive factor for how challenging pull-ups can be. The movement requires total upper body strength to complete, and biological males naturally have larger frames with a greater potential to hold more lean body mass and muscle, which then helps support all upper body movement. Now, we have data also showing that females naturally carry more lean body mass in their lower bodies, whereas males naturally tend to hold more relative lean body mass in their upper bodies. Now, here to chat some more and give us her expert advice on how to master the pull-up is Angela Gargano. Welcome to the show, Stunner.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Angela. Now, just because women tend to have less muscle strength in their upper extremities, making this pull-up a real challenge, it doesn't mean that they have to miss out on all the benefits a pull-up can actually provide. Now, these exercises do strengthen our upper bodies and our arms, but also our shoulders, our core, and our back. What recommendations and exercise or techniques do you have for those of us that want to work our way up to a full pull-up?
Absolutely. And I also want to say that the pull-up actually is a full body movement. So you also are working your glutes. So you are working your entire body while doing this movement, which is really, really cool and really special about the movement. I think the first place to start, honestly, is to just hop on a bar and hang on it. I know a lot of people don't really think that's really doing much, but it is. It's really going to help you with your grip strength. It's going to help you with your core strength. Just literally hop on the bar, get comfortable, and just hang. Literally just hang out on the bar. That's really the first place that you need to start with it. Another thing I want to talk about is I feel like a lot of women think they can't get a pull-up, and they don't understand why they can do certain things, and the pull-up is just so difficult for them. And it's interesting because I feel like it goes way back to, do you remember like the whole presidential and national award thing when we were in high school, or was that elementary school, when you're doing those tests in school and they're making you go through, and for some reason they always make the females, they're like, okay, you guys can just kind of hang. You don't actually have to try the pull-ups. I feel like right there kind of got a little discouraging for us as women to, oh, like you can't do a pull-up. So don't even try. You're going to try this other thing instead. So I feel like it's really, really powerful when I come through and I tell women, no, actually, this is totally possible for you. You just have to break it down step by step.
It's interesting you say that, because I remember having that experience with a push-up, and my coach at elementary school would say, all right, you don't have to do a full push-up. You could just do like a half one, or it was just interesting to see that they did treat the female physique much differently and have different expectations from youngsters, which is kind of ties it all together. But if you now are going to look at how women and men are treated on exercise expectations, let's talk about the summer heat. Now, the summer heat is on, and so is the pressure to look good. We have a statistic of about 42% of Americans feeling pressured, Angela, to have a beach body during the summer. And this surges to 75% among Generation Z women and 65% among millennial women like myself, like yourself probably. What are your thoughts on these stats and body image?
It's really frustrating to me because I feel like, obviously, I don't feel like the whole bikini body image, especially the ones that you're seeing portrayed on all these magazines and stuff like that, they're not really true. Like, I've been there. I've done fitness competitions. I've done all this stuff to have that six-pack chiseled abs. And a lot of it wasn't very healthy, and I wasn't very happy. So what I really try and help people do is tell them, instead of focusing on getting that bikini body, making that your main focus, why not focus on getting stronger? Focus on getting stronger. Focus on getting an amazing skill, and your body that you want, the body that you're in, is going to all come together when you're not actually focusing on that end metrics of having that certain weight or having that certain body.
I couldn't agree more. And, exercise is a very critical part of fitness, but some consumers really overlook its importance. We have 42% of those trying to lose weight spend less than 3 hours of exercise each week. How long should we really be exercising for, Angela?
That's super interesting. It really is different to everybody. It's also relative to like what you're trying to do, right? If you're an athlete and you're trying to run a marathon, or you're trying to do certain things, you might need to exercise a little bit differently than somebody else. But honestly, like 3 days a week and just getting outside and getting simple movement, like going for a walk outside, doesn't seem like much. But when I do with all my clients, I have like these non-negotiables, and I always tell them, trying to get some kind of movement in each day. It doesn't need to be an hour workout. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. You can literally do 3 days a week of like a 15-minute workout and just go for walks each day, and you'll still see results. It's just about staying consistent and keeping up with it. What I feel sometimes is people just do it like in bursts. Like they'll do like one workout and then they won't do it for like 2 weeks. Like, I don't understand why I don't see a difference. It's about being consistent and constantly be able to show up for yourself.
Yes. And, nearly half of Americans, we're at like 46%, are actively trying to lose weight, but they have very unrealistic expectations. For example, half of those aiming for weight loss aren't focused on nutrition and exercise. And we have a quarter of those with weight loss goals that they don't even visit their doctor for annual checkups. And then additionally, most of those looking to get fit for a specific event only give themselves 6 months or less to achieve their goals. So I definitely see, that discrepancy there. What advice do you have in terms of overall goals and being realistic and how to set them for yourself? You have about a minute.
I feel like the best thing to do, like I said, is to set yourself a goal for performance. So like for me, like I said, I love that goal of getting a pull-up because then it makes you show up every single day and you can see your progress every single week and it keeps you excited and accountable to want to show up. Because what people do is they get bored. They get bored. So
It's
find
true.
something that you're really excited to do and really work your way up towards it and give yourself and celebrate those little wins along the way so that you keep showing up.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, we're out of time, but I wanted to say thank you for coming on. You're full of great advice. I love your website, pulluprevolution.com. And you are such an inspiration to not only women, but men too. Ninja Warrior, that's a big title to carry, and you've done it effortlessly.
Yes, it's been such an experience. But I really what I love doing is I love seeing others, get their pull up. I love seeing others get stronger and feel good about themselves. And we have the saying, strong feels good, and it truly does.
You're 100% right. And you are what you eat, and exercise is only going to make us all that much greater. Thank you so much for coming on, Angela.
Check out Angela Gargano on the gram at Angela_Gargano. Definitely head to her website, pulluprevolution.com. That was our influencer segment brought to you by CCP Digital. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Tempus, the next generation of the engagement economy, allowing people to make money on their data and earn cryptocurrency for the time they spend on things they already currently love to do. With Tempus, brands will have the ability to pay you directly for interacting with apps, watching videos, playing games, and more. Tempus, the time is now. Engage and earn.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to My Digital World, brought to you by Tempus Network, a Burkhan World project. Welcoming back to the segment is our regular contributor, CEO of Tempus Network, Shahal Khan. And today he is joined by Shawn Sharma, a serial entrepreneur, a Cornell graduate with over 5 million followers across his social media accounts, where he often posts valuable content teaching people how to make more money and get involved in entrepreneurship. He's gone from living in a trailer park just off of $600 a month with 2 disabled parents to becoming a multi-millionaire. Obviously, this is propelled by his deep knowledge in blockchain technology, cryptocurrency, and Web 3.0. Today, we are chatting about how to make money in the metaverse utilizing Web3. Now, the metaverse revolution is definitely here, and it will profoundly redefine the way we work, experience, play, socialize, and learn. From taking on virtual jobs to creating digital assets, the opportunities to earn money in the metaverse are boundless. Now, you've probably heard all kinds of things about the metaverse by now, like that it's going to change how the internet works for everyone forever, or that Snoop Dogg has a place there. Now, a lot of investors are becoming increasingly curious about how they can create an income stream using the metaverse, and for good reason. The metaverse is a network of highly immersive 3D virtualized worlds focused on social interaction, where users come together to do activities through their avatars, such as playing games, attending a concert, or even simply working. Now, simply put, the metaverse is a virtual realm that parallels our real lives, in which almost anything is possible. Talk about living a double life. Now, the metaverse is made possible by technologies such as Web3 and digital assets, augmented reality, otherwise known as AR, and virtual reality, otherwise known as VR, artificial intelligence, 3D reconstruction, and the Internet of Things. That's right, IoT. You've definitely heard that tossed around lately. Now, although many aspects of the metaverse are still abstract, some clear components, such as cryptocurrencies and non-fungible tokens, are expected to play a foundational role in its internal infrastructure and economy. And here to chat some more are Shahal Khan and Shawn Sharma. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Super excited to be here.
Hi, Zen. Thank you.
Absolutely. Welcome back, Shahal. Shawn, so nice to have you on.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Okay, so Shahal, let's start with you and play-to-earn games, okay? We know that blockchain-based games with play-to-earn models, what we call P2E models, such as a very popular one that we know, Axie Infinity. We also have Avigotchi and Pegaxi. They all introduce virtual economies that reward players with tradable in-game assets and cryptocurrencies in exchange for their time and skill. But however, most of these P2E games require a somewhat hefty initial investment, usually an NFT to get started. And players are often required to reinvest for other in-game items or upgrades to increase their earning potential. Now, with metaverses, this means that gaming would most likely be the leading activity, at least for the start. What are your thoughts, and what is the best advice you have for gamers looking to monetize their time for playing?
Yeah, so Zen, I mean, the biggest problem here that I see about the whole play-to-earn model is that it really, the ones that came out earlier, someone's got to lose for someone to win. And it's not holistic around everyone participating. And what I'm seeing in the economic environment today, you know, it's so bad out there, and people want other ways of earning income. They don't want to go back into same inflationary jobs where they're working, you know, night and day and not getting ahead. We really have an opportunity here to create a new model where everyone that's participating in a work environment, you know, even if it's on the metaverse, doesn't have to be a game. They're given, you know, the adequate amount of, let's say, effort that they put in and a result, and they're able to monetize that based on their data. Simply put, if we could take all the data that people generate on Facebook and pay them for it directly rather than Facebook getting it, we're going to redistribute a lot of income, you know, around the world that people don't have. And I think this is the main change that's going to happen. We've got to help people earn through monetizing what is theirs, their effort, their value of their data. And then we've got to, you know, put it into an organized fashion where we could create not only games, but engagement, but also, you know, real work where they can, you know, actually start to create and monetize each other and their creativity. That's the most important thing.
And it's a very important thing, because this could be solving real world issues. The pathway out of poverty is right around the door with this creator economy. So what you're saying resonates extremely with me. Shawn, let's chat metaverse real estate. All right. So as companies, major brands, and investors rush to own a slice of the metaverse, virtual real estate is experiencing a boom in both demand and prices. In early 2021, right, users could grab a small piece of land in popular metaverses such as the Sandbox and Decentraland for just under $1,000. But by the end of the year, people were selling these plots on secondary marketplaces for over tenfold their initial investment. What advice do you have for the novice looking to invest in metaverse land?
Absolutely. So usually when we hear about these headlines and we hear about these crazy prices on Sandbox or some of these established metaverse projects that have had land for a long time, it's kind of too late to get into them. So what I've been doing, and what a lot of people have been doing lately to make money in that space, is they've been looking for new projects that are backed by reputable names that have done, you know, other startups in the tech space, that have had other companies that have done, you know, billions of dollars before. And they're looking for those projects early, and they're trying to mint them early instead of trying to buy at already, you know, like you said, some stuff has gone up 10x, 50x, 100x. You know, now that Snoop Dogg has, you know, his land in the metaverse, it's pretty expensive to get, you know, land in the same project. So what I like doing is I like looking for new projects. One of those projects I recently got into was Big Time. I was one of the ones to buy an early. I bought a bunch of different plots of land, and all those plots of land are up like, I'd say 20 to 30x what I paid. So what you want to do is you want to look for new projects. You want to look for new opportunities that are not already saturated. And the way you decipher between the good opportunities and the bad ones is you really look at the team. So I think the team is the major thing. if you see people that have a track record, if you see a CEO, if you see people that are investing into the project, that, you know, certain VC firms, certain companies, they have a really good track record of backing projects that go on to succeed. So you want to be looking for those projects. You don't want to just get into stuff that's being hyped up by an influencer, and you want to make sure that you're getting in early and not getting in towards the end, because a lot of times when you get in towards the end, it's just way too risky, right? You have a greater chance of losing money than making money. So
yeah, exactly. And NFTs, to be clear, guys, for the listeners out there, are these specifically land parcels in metaverses are essentially NFTs stored on the blockchain. And this means that each plot is unique. It cannot be duplicated, and it is owned by the one who holds the private keys to the wallet address that holds that NFT. And just as you would in real world, research the metaverse project, please. Consider plot locations and scarcity of the virtual land parcels before buying virtual real estate in the metaverse of your choice. And that's a disclaimer I just want to put out there. All right, Shahal, the future of monetization. Let's talk about that. So the future of monetization with Web 3.0 may be questionable, but the majority of Web 3's focus is on decentralization. User is at the core and will be the driving force, be it content, ads, or monetization. What we are realizing is that adaptation is the need of the hour for businesses. Sure, the traditional payment methods will remain, but businesses have to acknowledge the fact that blockchain will be thrown into the mix and change the dynamic of the digital economy. How is Tempus paving the way?
Well, you see, the most important thing is you have to have the infrastructure, number one, where there's KYC and people know each other. They also have a ability to make sure that whatever assets that they have that are tied to their identity are real. And this is where blockchain, can be the audit trail. But then beyond that, you're going to have a complete, transparent, cost-effective method of transferring those assets across borders. I mean, the whole thing about decentralization is there's no borders. That means somebody in Africa or India has the same amount of capability to be able to transact into various assets or buy assets or trade assets that somebody would have in the United States. Like this whole moat, of people that are only able to be within certain countries and benefit is over when real decentralization happens. But along with that, you need to have a lot of trust capabilities built in. So the banking systems that are now going to be created, those have to be tied to proper, let's say, infrastructure, as well as balance sheets that are not going to blow up tomorrow. And they can provide also liquidity for the people that want liquidity when they want it, rather than waiting for days or slow startup times in terms of getting their liquidity back. So all those have to be addressed. And we've been Tempus is actually a lot more than just the engagement patent that I wrote. It's actually now becoming an entire infrastructure where there are regulated exchanges, there's regulated banks, there's a crypto to bank transferabilities based on banks that we've acquired. Because the idea is, like, for example, to the 1.5 billion gamers, for example, that we're going to initially launch and test Tempus on, we want them to be able to now trade their assets or their time. Also, they earn and now are compensated for their time, which can be now allocated as NFTs. So you have a receipt, and then you're able to sell your time and effort to a brand or a data buyer. All those have to be traded transparently. And also at the end, governments are going to see that as a form of income. So they're going to want to tax people, right? So we also want to be regulated. We don't want to be outside of regulation. Also, we want to be able to kind of help stabilize things like Bitcoin. I mean, look, Bitcoin is supposed to be a store of value, but it became a Ponzi scheme. In my view, if people are really earning hard-earned money, for example, from GameFi, and they could take a small amount of that and park it in a sort of a DeFi element like Bitcoin, but it's earned, it's not gamed, Bitcoin can actually start to become a real store of value. I mean,
absolutely.
But, that's where, we want to start to make crypto a little bit more stable, a little bit more real, and people can start to earn real income with that in that way. And that's our job, to make that infrastructure.
Without a doubt. And talking about people's jobs, when we talk about the metaverse and brands, let's divert to Shawn here. So Shawn, a growing list of high fashion brands are experimenting with virtual clothing and other wearables, minting them as NFTs and promising future utility to holders, such as exclusive access to both online and offline events. And digital fashion allows users to customize their avatar's clothing. This means monetization opportunities for those looking to create their own digital clothing line. What do you say to this, and what should brands be mindful of for Web 3.0 to continue to be profitable? You have about a minute.
Absolutely. So I think coming into this space, a lot of brands need to be cognizant of the Web3 space, right? So the main ethos of Web3 is to basically give ownership to the user and give them an opportunity to, just like Shahal said, to have usage of their own data, to be able to make money on whatever their actual footprint is in that economy, right? So I think a lot of brands need to make sure that when they do launch these different digital products, they're not making the same mistakes that have led to the development of Web3. So it's not just enough to create an NFT. You have to find ways for the consumer to be able to benefit from the utility, for them to be able to even take, what they've purchased and be able to maybe resell it for more in the future. So those are all ideas that they're going to have to think about, the utility as well as a mechanism for the loyal consumers to earn money or some type of consideration in the future from their purchases.
Exactly. I mean, look, if you look at Gucci, they opened virtual pop-ups on metaverse platforms, Roblox and Zepeto, and the brand also acquired land in Sandbox. Then you have Ralph Lauren, just like Gucci, an American fashion house, they've also held virtual pop-ups on Roblox and Zepeto. So you see this trend, Balenciaga with online game Fortnite, they offered 4 signature items from its collection for players to use as skins back in September. So we're seeing this adaptation more and more, and we're definitely seeing brands move into the metaverse. And when you see the big guys, right, like Burberry, Balenciaga, Ralph Lauren, Gucci, start to make that play, it's time for all the little guys to start to wake up. Well, listen, we're out of time. Shahal, I want to thank you so much for bringing on such an enlightening guest. Shawn, thank you so much for coming on and gracing us with your money-making tactics.
I'll definitely have to come back on. I loved it.
All right.
Zen, by the way, Shawn is awesome. I saw him in Dubai. I mean, the way he talks to people, he inspired me, man. And he's helped a lot of people make money and do it the right way. And I want you to continue doing that, Shawn. My brother, he's a fantastic human being like you, Zen. So thank you both.
I appreciate
really enjoyed this
from both of you guys. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. That was My Digital World. That was My Digital World segment brought to us by Tempus Network. That was Shahal Khan, CEO and founder of Tempus Network and Burkhan World. And that was Shawn Sharma. Definitely check him out on the gram at Shawn Sharma, and definitely check out Tempus at tempus.network. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Tempus, the next generation of the engagement economy, allowing people to make money on their data and earn cryptocurrency for the time they spend on things they already currently love to do. With Tempus, brands will have the ability to pay you directly for interacting with apps, watching videos, playing games, and more. Tempus, the time is now. Engage and earn.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcoming back to My Digital World is Shahal Khan and Shawn Sharma. And today we are talking about how to make money in the metaverse and how to make money in Web 3.0. Now, Shahal, let's talk about buying, selling, and creating NFTs, because this is a hot topic that everybody wants to know about. And then we're going to get Shawn's perspective as well. So the vision of the metaverse is to eventually integrate and connect smaller metaverses that are in development to form this single overarching metaverse, so to speak. And when that happens, user avatars and NFTs are expected to be interoperable and easily migrated between these metaverses. And this opens possibilities of earning from NFTs throughout the metaverse, essentially. Now, one common way to profit from NFTs is to buy cheap and flip when the value appreciates, just like Shawn was talking about earlier. And obviously, this is purely speculative, but famous NFT collections such as Bored Ape Yacht Club and CryptoPunks have in fact traded at astronomical prices. So we're hyperbolizing here. But what should people keep in mind when investing in NFT, Shahal, given all the misinformation, scams, and spam taking place currently on the blockchain?
Zen, people have to understand why they're doing this in the first place. There's, the quick fix like a penny stock, like gambling, right? Because you never know who's behind the NFT. You never know the community that's going to support it after you buy it. It's a lot like buying penny stocks in the old days. or you're in the metaverse for understanding how to earn out of it and make stable income. So creating a store, creating, for example, I mean, you're talking about big brands before. Big brands should be paying people to talk about them. So I don't think it's enough for Gucci to come out and just expect people to buy their stuff through NFTs. Gucci should be paying people specific Gucci NFTs to be talking about them, right? So we have to get away from, how do we make money quickly? This crypto mentality, we're going to get 2000x on something, right? Because it doesn't exist. Value exists in the minds of people, right? Like, for example, I think maybe 2 generations from now, even 1 generation from now, people my daughter's age, I don't think they're going to really maybe have a massive value for like, Orientalist paintings or like the Renaissance paintings. For them, it'd be like, okay, well, Daddy, what's this old thing on the wall? Like, maybe the thing I have here is like priceless, right? But for the new people, they're going to be like, what is that, right? And but value is only based on what people perceive it to be. But there's that kind of value that will continue to earn income and is stable, or the sort of value that people create out of community-based kind of value creation that'll keep on taking it up, but then it'll crash. So people have to understand what they want. Do they want stable income, or do they want to have some sort of a pump and dump scheme, right? And for that, NFTs aren't correct. NFTs are just supposed to be a receipt for an ownership of something. They're not supposed to be like a stock or a security.
Yeah, exactly. You have to really do your homework here, just like you would in Web 1 and Web 2. Web 3 comes with a lot of bells and whistles, and it comes with a lot of opportunity, especially, with this creator economy paving the way on a decentralized fashion. But at the end of the day, it's logic, right? You have to evaluate these things. You have to be well versed on it. You have to do your research and your homework. Shawn, what are your thoughts? What should people keep in mind while investing in NFTs, given all this misinformation, scams, and spam taking place currently on the blockchain?
Absolutely. There's a lot of scams and a lot of spam when it comes to the NFT marketplace. But what I would say is, like, it's easy to get caught up into the hype of flipping these things and trying to make money through that mechanism. And I would say, like, a lot of these projects are not very good projects, and there's a lot of speculation. And because of the speculation, you're most likely going to end up losing money, right? It's just not a good bet. But what I would say is, a lot of people, especially people that are creators, they should start looking at ways to add value in this space by maybe creating their own NFT or helping brands do the same. There's a lot of different careers that are being launched with NFTs, with Web3, with the metaverse. And, they need people that are marketers. They need people that are video people. They need people that are artists. They need people that are website designers. So there's a lot of ways to come into the NFT space and make a lot of money. Whether you're in the press space, right? You could write press for big NFT projects, right? So there's a lot of ways to make money like that. I would caution people from just trying to buy a random NFT and flip it. If you've done your research, if you have a good reason to buy something, or if you're buying an NFT that leads to, some type of play to earn game where you're going to make money in the game by using that NFT to play a game, then I think it's a different story. But I think for most people, the average person shouldn't just go randomly buy an NFT, because most likely they're going to lose money, right? So I think I would just caution people. And I would also caution them to maybe think outside of the box and find ways to add value to the space, because whenever you add value, you're going to make money, right? So you can't just rely on those quick hits. You got to find a way to be in this game for a long time, and you're gonna make a lot of money if you do that.
There you go. So what you're saying is, don't give in to FOMO. I couldn't agree more. All right. Well, listen, we have now summed up another incredible segment. Shawn, thank you for coming on. Shahal, thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Zen. Thank you, Shawn.
Absolutely. That was My Digital World, brought to us by Tempus Network. That was Shawn Sharma and Shahal Khan. Well, listen, guys, overall, to put it in a nutshell, if you look at the year in retract, as of April of 2021, the global gaming value exceeded $300 billion. While a substantial chunk of it is due to the rapid adoption in the recent pandemic, right, and the availability of a plethora of mobile games, gaming is no more a child's play. A sustainable long-term monetization strategy can't just be an afterthought, but an essential building block for gaming, media, and entertainment businesses. And that's what you have to keep in mind. It's the year 2020. 2022, and we are entering a new dimension with bleeding edge innovations across industry verticals. The line between gaming, the media, and entertainment is getting thinner by the day. Seamlessly integrated experiences may have sounded fancy a couple of years back, but now it's a bare essential. We're about to enter the next generation of seamless, connected tech experiences thanks to the metaverse. It's time for content-based enterprises, from small indie studios to large AAA studios and OTT platforms, to really reconsider their monetization strategy. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OG Pay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OG Pay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. In our innovation and tech segment brought to you by Caldwell Soames, we have returning contributor Paul Caldwell, chairman and CEO of Caldwell Soames. And today we are chatting with Robby Yung, CEO of North American operations at Animoca Brands, a global leader in blockchain games. And today we're chatting about reshaping game experiences, the monetization process in Web 3.0, and how blockchain games are the strongest category among crypto market and even during the downturn. Now, blockchain games is the category within crypto that has resisted the industry's downturn the most, with actively still being up close to 200% year over year. And one of these spaces Web3 is expected to impact profoundly is, in fact, the gaming industry. Previously, video game publishers mostly made their money from sales of physical or digital copies of their games, plus whatever associated merchandise they could conjure up. As for players, the only benefit they got from games was largely the enjoyment they derived from playing. Now, gamers spend bucket loads of money on game titles, in-game items, and even additional downloadable content, otherwise known as DLC. However, these games and whatever in-game items players bought often lost whatever value they had as soon as the player finished or grew tired of the game, since they never really owned anything they bought in the game. Now, with the emergence of Web3 and its associated technologies such as blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and NFTs, the traditional monetization model for gaming is set to be turned on its head. So let's review. Blockchains are immutable ledgers that securely record every single transaction on a network and allow for the creation of NFTs. Now, NFTs represent unique and verifiable data tied to virtually anything, including in-game assets such as weapons, costumes, avatars, and even virtual land. Now, with Web3, NFT-based games can be moved across different platforms and sold to other players on secondary marketplaces, fueling an entire secondary economy and giving rise to what we are pegging as the creator economy. And here to chat some more are Paul Caldwell and Robby Yung. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Robby, some Web3 games can also offer opportunities for players to earn passive income through the staking and yield farming of in-game cryptocurrencies. So players receiving tangible financial rewards for the time and effort put into games is a profound premise that will offset the inequality that has existed for so long in the gaming space. It will also represent a relatively risk-free avenue for introducing millions of people to crypto. How is Animoca empowering and paving the way for the gaming community for gamers to access highly valued and often inaccessible NFTs required to partake in play-to-earn games as we enter Web 3.0?
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. So I think on the first part, we make games, obviously, and we focus on blockchain games. And I think from our perspective, the whole premise of blockchain games is that we give digital property rights to gamers. And in so doing, we make, the whole environment and ecosystem much more fair because customers get what they pay for. And I think this sounds odd at first until you start to think about exactly what you get in traditional sort of what we call Web 2 games, which is you actually get a license to use content in the game, but you don't really own it. You don't have agency over it. You can't sell it. You can't trade it. You can't bring it to another game. It's your digital stuff, so you should have agency over it. So that's the fundamental difference in blockchain games. Now, once you tokenize those in-game assets, because they are tokens, that means there's a relatively easy interoperability with other types of blockchain standards. So we've seen very innovative applications being developed by other players in the space to build on top of the assets that we create for our games. So fun things like, you can take playable NFTs from our games and go and put them up as collateral for DeFi loans at NiftyFi and other protocols. And so it's interesting to see how all these services can work together as we build out this wider ecosystem.
It's, and you are building out quite the large ecosystem. I mean, you are dabbling in a lot. When you look at Animoca Brands as a leader in digital entertainment, blockchain, and gamification, I see that you guys are producing a diverse range of products, including the Rev and Sand tokens, original games like the Sandbox, Crazy Kings, and Crazy Defense Heroes, which are so popular, and items based on popular intellectual rights, such as Disney, WWE, and Snoop Dogg. I mean, you guys are the next level. So hat off to you. All right, Paul, all of these blockchain games are communities, and many of them are set up so players can earn cryptocurrency there that they can exchange for fiat, known as real money. Now, cryptocurrencies have become extremely popular due to the ideals of decentralization that they convey, along with potentially outsized gains, but their volatility remains high, and these assets carry a greater risk of losses than many traditional assets. I think we're not at a mass adoption yet, but we're definitely at mass acceptance. Now, for those who have done their research and decided that crypto is right for them, it's definitely a good time to jump into the investment now. And GameFi is at the heart of it all. Talk to me about how tightly cryptocurrency really correlates to the investment markets, and what's the impact of the correlation on different asset classes?
Well, I think you have to look at cryptocurrency as an asset class in and of itself, and with sectors inside of it. If you want to look at tokens, for example, Animoca Brands is a great example of. I look at Animoca as a garage.com back in the 90s. They invest in startup, and they invest in startup and venture level companies, and so they're basically to me they're a venture capital fund in the cryptocurrency space. And companies like that will yield accordingly. Inside that, when you start to talk about tokenization and creating tokens and fungible tokens versus non-fungible tokens, I think the correlation to the broader markets isn't as tight as many would think. I believe Bitcoin is an example, has shown up actually recently more tightly correlated to the NASDAQ in the tech space than ever before in the last 60 days, just the last 60 days. But if you look at those correlates, you'll find that there are some that are really obviously showing up. So there are correlations starting to actually develop. But you have to understand that the markets, the global markets, were around long before cryptocurrency was ever invented. They're just fine. They're used to massive dips and massive runs and bulls and bears, and they've been around for a long time. In the crypto space, the bulls and the bears and how to deal with all of that in a proper way has never been really defined. I mean, it's simply like, well, crypto's below 20, I'm a buyer. Oh, geez, it's at 60, I'm a seller. It's these kinds of things that really happen. And so tokens have to be able to move into the real world where real people live. There's simple analogies. I'm not a big believer in some of your more traditional industry standards in the capital market space that think that cryptocurrency is an anathema. I don't believe that. I think it's absolutely not. I think it's showing up significantly well for its purpose. I just think its purpose hasn't been completely defined. It doesn't really have all that tight of a correlation to global financial markets at this particular juncture, but it's embryonic, and it can. It just doesn't right now because it doesn't have the any way to really collateralize effectively with that. I think Celsius lately is a great example of trying to collateralize with cryptocurrency. It's just it's either a bad idea well executed, or it's an excellent idea poorly executed. I don't know which, but these things happen all the time in
Yep.
this space. A lot
All
of
the
risk.
time. A lot of risk, and still in infancy stage. And so we have to really pay close attention to all of these market cues here. Robby, Axie Infinity turned its game into a billion-dollar economy that helped thousands of players in the Philippines and other low-income countries to weather the fallout from pandemic mitigation measures, so to speak. And the main ingredient for success, strong property rights. Except, as of recently, Axie Infinity Sky Mavis reports find that the game has surpassed 2 million daily active users, but the majority of players are found in Southeast Asia, with only 10% in the US and a remaining 20 to 25% across Europe and Africa. Now, there's one particular barrier for Axie Infinity players. You need to buy 3 Axie characters to be able to play the game and earn rewards. And these NFTs are now fetching at around $400 each, pricing out many potential players. So this model doesn't seem very fair to me and rather offensive to the game. What are your thoughts?
Sure. So I think it's one of those things which is, I guess you could call it an unintended consequence, but it's the consequence of having a fixed supply economy. So when you don't have inflation and you don't keep quote unquote printing new stuff, asset value increases. It's the nature of the game. So as the user base grows and the number of Axies was relatively finite, the value increased. So actually, one of the reasons that most of those players in the Philippines are playing is because of an innovation created by a friend of ours who has a company now called Yield Guild Games. And what he did was create software to help him to rent his Axies to other players, because he had a surplus of Axies. He was a super fan and he had lots of Axies, and he's like, look, let me try to figure out a way through software that I can actually allow my friends, in my local community to use my Axies because I'm not using them. And so he came up with what we now call guild software. So you can join a guild and be able to participate in this economy without actually having to own the individual Axie characters. A little bit like renting a car to drive for Uber.
I love it that you just taught me something I didn't even know. All right, cool. Paul, let's go back to your area of expertise here. So under its contractionary monetary policy efforts, right? The US Fed is trying to fight inflation by raising short-term interest rates. Basically, the US Fed is trying to decrease spending in the US economy. Right now, if you look at historically these impacts, you could clearly see, right, that where we are right now, it feels very tight. What impact does the U.S. Federal Reserve raising interest rates have on digital assets and companies developing in the digital asset sector?
We find in our portfolio companies that are in the digital asset space, whether it's in fintech or whether it's in the tokenization or even digital rights, these different areas in that sector. What we find is that, first of all, we believe the U.S. Fed's not done raising rates. We actually think they have to get to about 1.5 before it even starts to get close to their goal of 2%. In the US. Now, a lot of people in other markets outside the US think this doesn't impact us. I've heard it from actually digital asset companies, cryptocurrency companies. This doesn't affect us. I think they're wrong. I believe that if they really understood economics, and not even just macroeconomics, but just economics and econometrics, they would have to start to realize that when the US Fed raises rates, there are informed impacts on foreign markets, because what happens is the US dollar gets stronger against those foreign currencies in those markets. So if you're going to have someone with cryptocurrencies that has to use their liquidity in euro or in rand in South Africa, for example, or even in HKD, which is really kind of closely aligned with US peg, DPEG, you're going to see some impact, because those people now that want to go buy those tokens or buy those currencies are going to be less likely to just jump in and use their fiat money to acquire those so they can get into those games or into those environments as that pressure continues. At 0.75, it's already showing up. It just was announced the day before yesterday. Yesterday, already starting to see impacts in Japan and in the global financial markets, the effect of 0.75. The Fed has to go well beyond 0.75, in our opinion, to actually get anywhere near where they want to be, unless, of course, we start to see some market-based adjustments that actually get created, but doesn't seem like it's trending that direction at the moment. So I think there is an impact.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we're almost out of time. We're going to come back from a commercial break. But although the recent hike was welcomed by the crypto markets, with the global market cap zooming over 5% and cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ether, Cardano, all of them witnessing spikes, in the long run, as per historical data, it seems like the reduction in spending also causes a reduction in investing, to your point. And as per data from Coin Market Cap that I recently read, ever since the US Fed began raising interest rates, the price of Bitcoin has fallen by 40%. So there you have it. We are out of time. Paul, thank you so much for coming on. Robby, always a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much.
Guys, you definitely have to check out Animoca Brands. Head to their website. That was Robby Yung, CEO of Animoca Brands. And check out his Twitter. He's always very active on Twitter, @ViewFromHF. That was Innovation and Tech segment brought to you by Caldwell Soames. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
If you've missed out dining in New York City for the past year, it's time to visit the legendary Vice Cucina. Located in the heart of Midtown, Vice specializes in blending delicious Northern Italian and American cuisine with dishes such as the incredible taglione lobster, ravioli masala, ossobuco, and pappardelle al telefono, along with many other mouthwatering offerings. You deserve a great night out. Call Vice Cucina 212-757-2600 or online at vicecucina.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcoming back to our Innovation and Tech segment brought to us by Caldwell Soames. We have our returning contributor, Paul Caldwell, CEO and chairman of Caldwell Soames. And today he is joined by the show's really good friend, Robby Yung, CEO of North American Operations at Animoca Brands. Robby, welcome back, my friend.
Hi, good to be here. Thank you.
All right. So Animoca reported $573 million in bookings and other income for the first 4 months of this year, making Animoca Brands' investment portfolio now worth over $1.5 billion. No signs of slowing down. What makes Animoca so lucrative and sets you apart from the rest?
Lucrative. That's a nice word. I appreciate the flattery. Thank you. We're honestly just trying to keep building and stay afloat like everybody else. As they say on Twitter, we're all going to make it, right? So I think we're well positioned because we've tried to take a very broad-based approach to the industry. We're in the games business. The games business tends to be very hit-driven, and so we try to get involved in as many exciting parts of the industry as we can, because obviously focusing on individual single hit games is very hard. And so we try to have as many irons in the fire as possible. So we've got several AAA titles, MMOs in launch phase right now. We've got casual games out there. And we have some traditional games that are integrating blockchain economics in them as well.
You're dabbling in exactly the areas that you're supposed to, given where we're headed with Web3, but you're also keeping in mind of the traditional models and still catering to that demographic, which is quite impressive, because it's not like you've taken this play to earn model, ran with it, and completely forgot about the core of having fun with the game, right? So good job. Paul, given the current reality of global inflation, have cryptocurrencies and crypto service companies suffered because of high inflation? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think basically what Robby just said, their approach Animoca takes. My managing director in our Hong Kong office asked me like 2 years ago, have you heard of Animoca Brands? I said, I never heard of Animoca Brands. He says, well, they're doing some great things in digital and in gaming, and you really should. It's like a venture capital fund for this and that. So we've tracked the company, and we're quite impressed. So if I was going to be in that space, I would definitely appreciate their approach to the whole thing, because I think they're also leading in key sectors of the space. They could almost look at their fund or their firm more as a value add to deliver a higher value, because they already go look for companies and programs that existing value is there. So you look at inflation, you say, well, how does it have an impact on a portfolio like that, right, in the digital space? And I think that, relatively speaking, it doesn't, because it's all early stage and it's all venture. So it's not necessarily about inflation, other than the people that are playing those games are likely to lessen their exposure, because they still have to buy milk and bread and feed their kids and pay for school and gasoline and things like that. So there's some fundamental econometrics at play that I think show up. But I think generally speaking, there's just inflation creates more of a separation between the crypto kings or the crypto world, the people that are already crypto bought in, like they bought into crypto already, or bought into digital assets and metaverse and all these things already. And then the other 95% of the world population who haven't yet really experienced that value and that would have opportunity to, other than they're too busy figuring out what next gig economy thing they're going to do. Are they going to now actually go drive for Uber? Or what else are they going to do to bridge the gap that exists between where they were financially and where they are, because they're paying $200 more a month for groceries than they used to, but they don't have the corresponding offset income streams to do it. And I think that's where it becomes really interesting, because can digital asset opportunities or digital asset related opportunities help close that gap? Is that even real? I think that most people that aren't crypto or digitally oriented already will just say no, because it's too risky. They have to learn all this stuff. It's not easy. So I think as natural authentication kind of things, as digital rights management gets addressed a little bit more significantly in the space, as it becomes more and more simplified to do some of the things Robby mentioned earlier, I think then more people will matriculate into the space. Inflation, no inflation, maybe they actually could look at it as a way to really hedge against some of that inflation in the future. But I think right now there is a bit of a negative effect or a negative impact of those that aren't already in the space being willing to come into the space. And that's the majority of the world population, by the way.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, when you look at GameFi though is rapidly growing, right? And the collective market cap of leading blockchain games has topped $14 billion. Now, many investors right now, I'm going to play devil's advocate, and maybe Robby will answer this one, but many investors are feeling like it's time to pull back on crypto. But there are quite a few blockchain gamers still feeling very differently. In fact, they poured $2.5 billion worth of investments into blockchain games in the first quarter of 2022 alone. Robby, will blockchain games fall apart? What are your thoughts here?
I think honestly, they're here to stay. I think it's just a matter of at what point will the adoption curve kind of tip to being a substantial majority or minority of the population, because right now it's very small and it's relatively niche. But I think it's quite a simple proposition, because when consumers are offered the choice between renting and owning content or items at equivalent price and equivalent experience, I think people will always choose ownership. It's just that straightforward. So it's up to us to make those experiences fun and engaging. And if we do that properly, then I think what you'll notice is the reason that it's not specifically correlated to crypto markets, even though we use blockchain currencies, fungible tokens within our games, is because actually we're entertainment. We're not currency trading, and entertainment is countercyclical. Typically, people still have their Netflix subscriptions when times are not good, because they don't go out as much, so they stay in and watch Netflix. Things like that. So entertainment spending tends to be relatively constant, regardless of macroeconomic conditions.
Yeah, you're giving them a world, an immersive world outside of their reality, which probably is feeling extremely stressful for the average person right now. And this is escapism at its best. And then you're rewarding them. So you're here to stay. Animoca Brands ain't going out of business anytime soon. The GameFi concept is clearly an improvement over existing online games. And the play to earn mechanism is ultimately the passport to broader crypto adoption, as blockchain and NFT games hint of what lies ahead. It's not surprising then that this explosive trend shows no signs of slowing down, to your point. And at this rate, GameFi and NFTs will become a rallying point for DeFi. And with growing public interest and an influx of capital, prospects for this nascent industry are limitless. And that's the bottom line. We are out of time again, my dear friends. Thank you so much for coming on, Robby. Always a pleasure chatting with you. Paul, thank you so much for being one of our platinum sponsors. Always love anchoring down innovation and tech segments with you.
All right, Zen.
Great.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
That was our innovation and tech segment brought to us by Caldwell Soames. Head to ogpay.com. And that was Robby Yung, CEO of North American Operations at Animoca Brands. Check out at Animoca Brands on the gram and check out at View from HF on Twitter to hear more fun and really, really smart concepts from Robby Yung directly himself. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Revere Securities. Revere is committed to building a relationship of trust in which they work closely with you to help you define your objectives, explore alternatives, and choose the financial and investment strategies that are most appropriate for you. Go to reveresecurities.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up in just a few minutes in our My Healthy Minutes segment brought to us by Revere Securities, we're featuring returning guest, Dr. David Rankin, founder of Aquaplastic Surgery in Jupiter, Florida, and the chief of plastic surgery at St. Mary's Medical Center in West Palm Beach. Now, Dr. Rankin has been in practice for 19 years. But in recent years, he has become very well known in the breast implant illness community. Now, interestingly enough, Dr. Rankin stopped implanting women 4 years ago to focus on specializing in explanting procedures. And over the past decade or so, more than 350,000 people in the US have reported adverse events related to silicone gel breast implants to the FDA. Now, their complaints range from autoimmune symptoms to a rare cancer called breast implant associated anaplastic large cell lymphoma. Now, despite the number and severity of the issues described, the experiences of such patients have long been ignored, and the famous among them land in the page sixes of the world. Bachelorette star Claire Crawley says her implants caused crazy health problems, while Danica Patrick reported hair breakage and heavy metal toxicity. Both documented their removal surgeries on Instagram. But for many, the confusion around what's now called BII, breast implant illness, has left them to suffer alone. And to date, breast implant illness remains the most controversial subject in aesthetic and reconstructive breast surgery. While sick implant recipients are still written off as crazy and BII is not a recognized medical condition, researchers are starting to document the reasons and ways that the body might rebel against an implant. Now, but it's unclear how often these ill effects of implants occur. Among sources that accept that they happen all the time, estimates vary between a small percentage all the way up to 1 in 5 women. And here to chat some more is Dr. David Rankin. Welcome to the show, my dear friend.
Hi, thanks, Zen. Very nice to be here again.
So nice to have you back on. All right, let's dive into this. If you go back in the early 1990s, the FDA banned silicone breast implants in response to public concerns about health risks, including cancer, connective tissue diseases, and autoimmune disorders. And later, research found no link between breast implants and these diseases. How did they make their way back on the market?
Well, I think what we're seeing is kind of a full circle of events. We're seeing the same symptoms that were present back then, same presentations with women. There was a period of time where the implants went off the market, were reconstituted to what the industry determined to be a safer material, safer silicone polymers. They went through a study with the FDA, and lo and behold, in November of, I think it was 2006, they were put back on the market. And now we're kind of seeing the same types of situations that developed in the past.
Wow. And, back, if you look at the research, since 1982, patients had been suing implant manufacturers in court with millions of dollars awarded in damages. And in June of 1988, cancer patient turned consumer advocate Sybil Goldridge, she wrote her restoration drama in an essay for MS Magazine, helping to bring what would eventually be called BII to national attention. And following 2 mastectomies, her body rejected multiple implants in increasingly painful ways. So, this is not really new, but it's been buried for whatever reasons, right? But moving on to, I have a very specific question here, because public consensus on the risk posed by BII seemed always just out of reach, Dr. Rankin. But currently, the lawsuits against implant manufacturers, for example, are still described in some medical and legal literature as aesthetically dubious, unfair to the targeted corporations, and not based on scientific evidence. What do you say to this?
Well, I think that there is credibility developing. As recently as 2021, the Food and Drug Administration came up with some new recommendations on things that women should be presented when getting breast implants. I know we're going to talk about black box warning, which I think is important that the FDA recommends. And what a black box warning is, it's the highest safety warning that a medication or device can have put on it by the Food and Drug Administration. They also determine patients should have a decision-making checklist presented to them when getting breast implants, which goes over things like possible development of BIA-ALCL, which is a lymphoma type disease that can develop, breast implant illness symptoms. Patients should be told these things can develop also. There's new screening recommendations for women with silicone as far as monitoring through the use of MRI and ultrasound. And patients are also given now a list of the ingredients within the implants, within the shell and within the gel, to know what's going into their bodies to make a more informed decision.
Yeah. So why aren't surgeons reviewing this warning more carefully with their patients? I mean, I literally walked into a doctor's office not long ago, and I was trying to see if I should have my breast implants replaced. And not once did this man ever mention to me the black box warning. And it was more of that's when I decided that I was no longer going to be pursuing that doctor to be able to take care of me. But we then had a first interview together with Susanna Demouni, and then I realized that if the doctors aren't giving you this message loud and clear, then obviously they're in it for the money, because that is a big decision-making factor for most women. And if you ask most women who have had implants, the doctor never once mentioned the black box warning. But so yes, thank you for saying that. Is there a link between medical grade silicone implants and any disease at this point?
It's still nothing concrete in the literature. So we don't know the cause and the effect and the relationship that they have. I think it can be made an argument that women with breast implants do develop these symptoms. So there has to be some mechanism of action, which is being further explored right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have saline implants and I've had them for 11 years. I have no symptoms and no issues. So a woman in my situation, do I need to replace them? And if I do and decide to go all natural, what procedures exist to fill what will then be deflated breast if I remove them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough decision for women for sure, because you put in implants, you expand tissues over time, and to remove that volume aesthetically, it becomes a big issue. If you have a lot of your own breast tissue, then you can remove the implant, maybe do a lift, maybe not, and get a good aesthetic result. But the really challenging patients are women with medium to larger implants and very thin breast tissues. If you remove the implants in those situations, you could have a poor aesthetic result. There's not a ton of options out there. There is fat grafting, where you can do liposuction, take that fat and inject it into a patient's breast to give more volume. I think lifting is important, not necessarily always to lift the areola and nipple, but just to tighten the skin, after removing that volume.
So when you think of the term breast implant illness, it's both controversial and very poorly understood, in my opinion, after speaking to many people. And there are no diagnostic tests or diagnostic criteria, and many doctors cite medical literature that says there's no straight line connection, so to speak, between the symptoms women are experiencing and their implants. What are some of the major symptoms reported to you by your patients?
So there's a ton, but skin rashes are very common, brain fog, depression, joint pain. Those are the ones that you can find right on the FDA's website as well. But I do see hair loss, exacerbation of autoimmune issues. often through thyroid, lupus, Sjogren's. If you read the fine print on some of the manufacturers' paperwork, some of these things are listed as well as possible side effects.
Craziness. I can't even believe that we're at where we are today with our technology, and this is still a mystery to people. Surgeons have been augmenting breasts since at least the late 19th century. Often, I was reading about this with really disastrous results, Dr. Rankin. The early days involved implants. I didn't know this. Made from ivory, wood chips, and even balled up plastic tape. And then silicone gel implants, I think, were introduced in the market in the 60s. They promised, a safer alternative in the form of this medical grade prosthesis, but they've since become increasingly commonplace, making up the majority of 1.8 million breast augmentations and hundreds of thousands of breast reconstructions. So the numbers are staggering because you have all these women out there with breast implants, and a majority of them. Bringing me to another question. So if you look at the bird's eye view from your perspective, where you're intaking all these women that are wanting to explant, does implant removal improve a patient's symptoms or cure a patient who's been medically diagnosed, like with an autoimmune disease, so to speak? And are they more susceptible than regular women who don't have any autoimmune disease?
Well, I do see a huge benefit from the patients in my practice. I always say about 85% of my patients do feel better after explanting.
Yeah.
So that's a big number. As far as does it cure some of the problems that they're having from an autoimmune standpoint, I have seen some of their numbers like ANA, which is a marker for autoimmune problems, get better. I've seen thyroid issues resolve. So I have seen some evidence-based distinct lab work get better. But beyond that, they usually feel better, more energetic, less joint pain, less hair loss, rashes go away, food intolerances. So there's a multitude of things that do go away in most women, not everybody, because you can't say that every problem you come up with is related to your breast implants. But oftentimes many of them are.
Yeah. And it's interesting because now you're telling me that there is verifiable evidence, clinical evidence, that things are improving after these women are explanting. So, I'm curious to know as to why that evidence is not taken into consideration. And this breast implant illness seems to be, plaguing so many women, and it's a mystery. I mean, there's doctors like you out there that clearly are seeing the evidence right in front of your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I see it on a day-by-day basis. Women do not get breast implants wanting to eventually remove them. So this is often a final thing. They're struggling with their health, and they almost have to do this, and they do it, and lo and behold, they feel better. So that's the great thing about doing what I do.
Of course, absolutely. And what needs to be done when a patient complains about breast implant illness? Are you explanting right away? Are you going down a list of things and crossing them off before you just make the decision?
Well, the patients make the decision for themselves, and many of these patients have been to many specialists. They've been to the emergency rooms. They've been to doctor after doctor, and nobody can really give them a diagnosis or an explanation.
Yeah.
And then they're told about breast implant illness, and that's how we move forward.
Yep. So if after the discussion of risks and the possibility of no improvement of symptoms post-explantation is discussed with the patient, what should be done if the patient demands an end block, so to speak, or a total capsulectomy with their explantation, do you just proceed and tell them, hey, that's exactly what we're going to do for you? Or how do you evaluate if that's truly the case?
Yeah, I mean, there's no test. There's no study. We can't do blood work. We can't do an ultrasound or MRI and say, yes, you have breast implant illness. So it's almost a diagnosis of exclusion when everything else has already been ruled out. Yeah. Sometimes we will send to specialists and do evaluations and blood work to see if maybe something else is causing the problem first.
And in your medical opinion, can breast implant illness lead to death?
Well, not necessarily. If you do develop the lymphoma, that can lead to death if it's undetected and untreated. So luckily, that is a very, very rare thing. We don't see it very often, but the patients that do have it, that's a big problem. But it really is, it's a lot of my patients, they lay in bed, they don't work, they have trouble doing day-to-day activities. So for those patients, it's pretty severe.
Got it. Well, listen, we're out of time, but what an enlightening segment. I always love talking to you because you're just like the voice of reason for many women who have been deemed crazy. So thank you for coming on. It was such an honor speaking with you again.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks again for having me. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Guys, you definitely have to check out Dr. Rankin at aquaplasticsurgery.com. Check him out on the gram at David Rankin MD. And you can also check them out at Aquaplastic Surgery. That was My Healthy Minutes, brought to us by Revere Securities. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Hi There, a creative community exploring the culture, craft, and science of cannabis. Hi There believes that we have a collective responsibility towards eradicating the stigma, misinformation, and inequities surrounding this plant so we can unlock its true potential for all. To become involved and find out what all the excitement is about, download the Hi There app from the App Store and Google Play. Hi There, HIGHTHERE.
Well, that's a wrap, my dear friends. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. Or you can head to 710WOR.iHeart.com/A Moment of Zen. And remember, we're now on TV. Download the KP Media TV app on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, or Android, or tune in at impact.kpmedia.tv and catch A Moment of Zen on the Impact Live channel Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern. All episodes of A Moment of Zen are now available on demand. Thank you for listening to us. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thank you to all of our sponsors. And remember, happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it.